Hello and welcome. This is episode 11 of my to-do list, and today I'm going to remove the dashboard for two main reasons. Number one is I want to take a look at the Speedo cable, see if lubricating it will fix the issue of it bouncing, especially when I'm driving slow, between 20 and 40 kilometers an hour. I get a significant bounce. Another thing I'd like to check is the economy gauge, and for that this is out of my old 230E, and some of these components are faulty, but the economy gauge should still be working. I'm wondering if the issue lies here. If I replace this and it works with this one, I know that the issue lies there. If not, the issue might lie in the vacuum lines. So these are the two main reasons. There's one other side reason, which is, one moment, this part here. This is one of the clips that actually keeps the whole dashboard in place. And I found this later, so I'm obviously only keeping it in place with one clip at the moment. So these are the three things. I'm hoping that I don't have to remove too much. Potentially I'll remove the whole speedometer cable, but I'll see when I get there. So let's start with the first step. Okay, so it's easier to see from this position. In the first step, I will just pull out the whole dashboard. Usually, or there are hooks specifically to get underneath, in between here, and pull it out. Anyway, for me, this is going to start off by simply pulling the whole dash, kind of wiggling it towards me. And this, okay. So this was the easy step. The next step is probably, well, the most difficult when it comes to removal, which is the Speedo cable, because that sits the tightest and you will have to jam your hand around the back. I go from the right side, I will go in here, and there will be you'll see the cable later. It's counterclockwise, and I'll show you how it looks once we've got the whole thing out. So I'm kind of fairly carefully making space for my hand, and I'm now, okay, I lied, it's clockwise, not counterclockwise. So I've removed the Speedo cable, which immediately gives me more access to the whole dashboard. Now the rest of the dashboard has multiple things connected. I've removed these several times and it's kind of intuitive. So I'm just going to remove all of this from the back and take out the whole thing. Patience really is key for this whole thing. I don't want to break off any pins. I don't want to bend cables too much. So here we go. Okay, so here we've got the entire back of the dashboard. This is where the Speedo cable sits and screws onto. We'll get to the way it looks in here in a second. This is the vacuum line for the economy gauge. So this will be an interesting part. I am thinking that maybe all I have to do is straight up plug this thing in and see what it does. The economy gauge is in fact not an electrical component at all. It is purely mechanical, which means that if I now simply plug in my replacement or my test part at the back here into the vacuum hose, there we go. So if I now turn on my car, and let's see what this needle does. If it moves all the way over here when idling, then it already is doing better than my current component. So let's reattach the battery and give that a try. Okay, we're seeing absolutely no movement at all. The old part didn't lead to any movement in the economy needle. Now to check if it is in fact just the vacuum hose that I have to plug in for any sort of reaction, I've plugged in just the vacuum hose for my current part. And now I will turn it on and see if I get the minimal movement that I'm used to. And I am. I'm getting movement, but not much. After these initial tests, I am somewhat assuming that my issue doesn't lie in the actual gauge in the dashboard cluster, but I probably have some vacuum related issue. So there is this one gray vacuum line which I might try and follow back and see if I can, maybe it's detached somewhere, maybe I can see that it's leaking somewhere. I'll have to check that. But that's a good indication to what is going on. Nice to have it replaced. It would have been even better if it just worked on the old part, because then I could have searched for a replacement part. Now I'll have to keep searching. Before I move on to that, I think I'm going to take a look at lubricating the speedometer cable, and I will check if it is easy enough for me to remove it or if I can just lubricate it a little from here, because it's actually looking pretty clean. I decided to follow the vacuum line first, and I've made a discovery. I followed the gray cable. It went from the dash to the fuse box compartment, across, over, and then it plugs in right under the air filter here, and just wiggling it, it cracked. And then I looked at the crack. There is definitely a hole in here, which I think is a pretty good discovery, because, well, first of all, it cracked off, which means it's very brittle, but also it means that there was already some sort of vacuum leak. I have attached some electrical tape, which isn't a permanent solution, but it at least gives me an indication if it will work or not, to the vacuum line, and I've reattached it, and I'm now going to check if it makes any difference. If it does, I will stop doing anything with this right now and order a new vacuum line, because there's no point of me trying to tape it up all the way. It's better to just replace the whole line, as I will just keep having to tape up and take apart stuff. Okay. That's indication enough for me to say it is in fact the vacuum line, and I will replace that part. I can't do it today because I don't have the part here, but in terms of identifying the issue, this is the best outcome really. So next up, let's take a look at the Speedo cable and see if lubricating it will do the trick, or if we need to take out the whole Speedo cable to take a look at it. So I followed the Speedo cable. The Speedo cable goes down through here, left hand side of the pedals, to the passenger side, and then from the passenger side under the car you can follow it going into the gearbox. I am not going to do the removal today, simply because of time, and also because I'd really like to capture it well. I've tried to find some good videos online, but they all just make it a bit difficult to understand where exactly it is, so I'd really like to provide something that is very clear. What I've done now is I have managed to just, from the gearbox, feed the cable, because it was actually hanging down a bit, so I've fed the cable so I get a little more cable access here, which makes it easier for me to screw on again. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to take a little bit of white lithium grease. I'm going to put it onto a little cloth, because I don't want to just spray that in here, and then I will kind of lubricate the pin in here using a little screwdriver just around that, and then see if that improves the situation. And then just, if screwing it on tightly without pulling the Speedo cable too much towards me, so yanking it out of position or bending it somewhere, if that might just do the trick. A little bit of lithium grease on here, and then I'm just going to take my screwdriver, drive it into there, and kind of just turn it back and forth a bit to get the grease inside there. This is probably not the #1 method of doing this, but yeah, I can definitely see that the grease has taken its place. Okay, and you can see on here, you can see that there's also a fair amount of dirt in there. So I reckon let's just connect it nice and tight and see if there's already some improvement. So when reinstalling the dashboard, the way I do it is I go by longest cables to shortest cables. There is a light bulb missing in 5, which is interesting, which I don't know if I lost that or... I am simply going to take the light bulb out of here, because this is an easy light bulb replace, and plug it into here. Everything now is reattached but the Speedo cable. So that will be the last thing, which hopefully now is a bit easier because I've given it a little bit of space. Just making sure that everything's in there. The clips are in there. Okay, now grab the Speedo cable. Yep, I've got the Speedo cable. Oh my god, I've got so much space. Why did I always injure myself doing this? Yeah, it's okay, that's very nicely attached. So now all I need to do is slide this back in. Now obviously, because I've got more space, I will have to pull the Speedo cable down a bit again. So I'll go under here. There we go. Everything appears to be working. The economy needle is about at half, which is better than it was, so we know what to fix. I can't check the Speedo now because I'm on ramps currently, but I'll turn it off, I'll pull the Speedo cable slightly, we'll go for a test drive, and then we'll end the video. We can see it's still wobbly, but it's not as bad as it used to, and maybe as the grease kind of sets in, maybe it gets a bit better over time. I do want to remove the Speedo cable eventually, but it's a good first indication that this can be done, and if I replace the Speedo cable, I can probably get it back to former glory. Alright, just got back from my test drive. We're not quite there yet, it's still a bit bouncy, but I will get to the replacement, or actually the taking apart the Speedo cable, lubing it up and seeing if that will do the trick in another video. Summed up, we've actually made some pretty good discoveries. We've discovered that the economy gauge is entirely driven by a vacuum line, and that in my case the vacuum line has a leak, is now kind of broken and only held together in tape, which is already working better, so replacing that will definitely fix the issue. We've put the clip back in place, and actually what I still wanted to let you know is that the first time I took apart the dashboard was in order to fix the stock odometer, and while I didn't film it, I took a bunch of photo evidence and I've uploaded it to a story on my Instagram highlights. So if you're struggling with a stock odometer and you need some picture evidence on how to put it back together, you should check that out there. While I didn't actually fix anything today, I'm still quite happy with the progress. I understand a lot better where the parts are all leading to. So in a future video, hopefully pretty soon, we're going to have this dashboard working as it should. That's it for today. Once again, thank you for watching, and see you next time.